Like some comments? I really do. I like some comments. Don't care about you. I like some comments.
Mysterious polyp then, innit? To kick us off, this one. Assuming I've pronounced it right. Yeah, right from off. This just seems to work well as a premise, really. And it flits in and out of perspective without making a big deal over how smart it's been. And just sticks to the facts as such. Certainly as we see them, any road. Kicks off with yon fella here doing a runner. For as far as the spondulics in his wallet will take him. Understandably looking for a fresh do of it, after watching his pad of 20 years go up in flames. And when he runs out of bus fare, right off the bat, he blags a job at a local garage and sorts out a room with his new boss and family. His story then unfolds backwards and forwards, putting some context as to how he wound up where he wound up and what he might want to do about it in the long run. I guess objectively speaking, he's clearly an intelligent fella with a celebrated academic career, but it would appear that he's seemingly not all that smart when it comes down to the sort of stuff that really matters to him when it boils right down to it. And the longer he ruminates on how things went wrong, the more his pennies seem to drop as to how maybe a big chunk of his woes and whatnot were probably down to him being a bit of a smart arse. And to be fair, he doesn't seem to shirk that realisation and decides to have another crack at stuff. All in all, it's a cracking book, is this, that takes a good hard look at the importance of sincerity, genuine good, versus the pretensions of life's daily dilettantes and the instability of erudite exclusion. I mean, you can see he's been a bit of a tosser, yon fella, but like most folk you get to know, there's a fair amount of reason behind that, and more than enough redeeming qualities to keep you rooting for him, in the hope that things will work out okay. And that's to the book's credit, because it can be a thin line pulling that sort of quandary off, without it feeling a bit forced, or that you're meant to feel one way or the other, like so much stuff out there that is nowhere near as subtle when trying to manipulate your emotions as to how it wants you to feel about the yarn it's trying to spin. Like I say, it's tricky to pull off, is that? But this pulls it off no probs. It covers a lot of familiar ground while doing something different, I think. Real dues is this. Now, Andy Capp is a character I reckon I've been aware of since before I read my first comic even. Not long before that, as I don't know, I've mentioned this before, I do know that, but I bought my first Beano on Abel Street at Babs and Bill's on my 5th birthday in May 1978. But prior to that, I have vague recollections of being sat on settee with my granddad while he leafed through a selection of Red Tops, and me being aware of stuff like Hagar the Horrible. George and Lynn stood out definitely for obvious reasons at that age, and stuff like Andy Capp. For some reason Fred Bassett jumps as well, but he were in Daily Mail, so it's not what I would have read first hand. Maybe there were one of them collections knocking about like. Andy Capp though I remember seeing regular and somehow getting it mixed up in my young noggin with Punch and Judy. Perhaps due to the violence that often ensued, I guess. Though the ones I remember always seemed to end up with Andy getting clattered off his missus' floor with a rolling pin, more often than not. When he rocked up after last orders all flat-capped and pie-eyed. And even as a kid, I knew we were drunk because of his red nose. I guess like the lion's share of daily strips, it ploughs familiar furrows and follows Andy from Barter Street to Bucky and back to Floor, again and again and again, and helps uphold certain stereotypes while not seeming like it's ever done in a condescending way or at the expense of the characters, even the lazy drunk protagonist, if that's what you want to call him. Especially the lazy drunk protagonist, who was, if not strictly admired, observed and to a degree empathised with all over the world. Of course times change, and as with many long-standing things, some of the themes that were depicted changed and all. Obviously the domestic violence was seen as less than ideal material for what is ostensibly a comedic strip. And as with everywhere else, loads of the local pubs shut down, and Andy even ceased making his ubiquitous tab, though Reg Smythe said that were less about political correctness and more down to him knocking nicotine on Ed. A habit Andy packed up and all. I guess it's one of them, Andy Capp, and it's one on a reasonably long list where I can't say I ever particularly enjoyed it as such, but I always read it regardless, and occasionally picked up a set of the collected strips if ever I saw them out for cheap enough, which he did in Chaz's quite a lot, so I guess he must mean something to me. And he's been knocking about for a good 60 years now, so I guess others must feel the same way. It's that familiarity aspect that certain strips bring, I think. Like Peel said about another English mainstay in his favourite band The Fall. Always different, always the same. That's Andy Capp and all. Yeah, Alice in Sunderland, I said. Cloth ears. Yeah, if you're a fan of these here, best of this, best of that, best of the other lists that get put together every year to increase sales on, records, DVDs, games, etc, 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 etc. The type of resource utilised by lazy gets such as I, who don't really keep that abreast of contemporary kit like I did when I were a lad, when being acutely aware of the latest and greatest in various fields were felt to be important for some reason. Well then what happens next is some of these esteemed annual champions get lumped in with other golden greats, and if they're lucky might end up on one of these here best 100 ever lists that even lazier gets blagged their way through to kid themselves and anyone else even halfway interested that they know what's what in the big bad scheme of things like. And when it comes to comics included on lists such as these, the same titles understandably get chucked about, whether Watchmen, Sandman, Contract with God, the best of Ball Boy, and that. But if you talk to the right kind of cats, they'll tell you this here should be on more of them lists. I mean, yeah, you come across reviews by lazy folk who never got it together enough to wade right through it because it seemed too much of a chore. And it is occasionally dense and wordy. I get that. But like most stuff that's worthwhile, it's worth putting the effort in based on what you get out. Plenty to be learned here regarding all manner of tip-top cultural fodder, as the narrator of the piece weaves through at least a couple of millennia worth of all sorts of history, global to local, and towards the end there's a wonderful few pages that hold a mirror up to the sort of nonsensical prejudice and bigotry that appears so prevalent in our pre- and post-Brexit era, which fetches things pretty much right up to date. Give it a do, man, and try and stick with it. I reckon you'll be glad you did.
Like me some comments, I really do.